Do you write for executives or decision makers who own companies? Well, as a copywriter, if you do, pay close attention. Hi, this is Justin Hitt with Ad Briefing's Copywriting Tips. Copywriters and technical writers and marketers who write for executives find big dollars in big chunks because executive communication is more critical now than ever before. In fact, there's federal laws in the United States that make executives responsible for what they say to consumers, and also executives need the right information to make important decisions. So I've got a list of about 16 different tips here for writing for executives. I'm going to share 3 of them, just the first 3 off the list, because I think getting started in this area can make a huge difference to your business bottom line. Whether you're actually writing copy for executives like speeches, presentations, annual reports, status reports, technical documents, lead generation materials where executives are your customer, or you're writing materials for that executive which they will use to communicate with their organization. The opportunity is endless. But number 1 is you want to make sure that any document longer than 10 pages has a table of contents. I know that sounds simple, and it's just seriously the first one off the list. But very often I see copywriters produce large documents. Now, I'm not talking about sales letters, but large documents that have an executive as the audience, and there's no easy way for the executive to find their way from the first page to the final page or to the information they're looking for. Now, sales letters are a little bit different because you have the dual readership paths. You'll use the subheads in order to move the reader along. You'll use bullet points and other things. But if you're writing a report of findings, for example, so you've gone out and you're doing a marketing makeover, like the marketing makeover that we help people put together. And you've looked at the organization and you've collected 15 of their best controls over the last 25 years. And you've done critiques on a handful of them. And then a couple of them you've rewritten into lead generation pieces to be tested. And then you've also written some background information or related to what they can do in their marketing approach. And you've done a 35-minute presentation in front of them. And now you give them this binder that's supposed to be a year's worth of marketing campaigns, which they can simply just flip through and get started with. And there's no table of contents. There's no way for that executive to go straight to the campaign they want to implement. Now, that executive could be the vice president of sales. It could be the CEO of the company. It could be the owner. But again, if it's more than 10 pages, it's got to have some kind of table of contents, because we're writing for a person who's extremely busy. And when executives are busy and under stress, it can knock 10 to 20 points off their IQ. At that moment, when they're looking at your paper, if it is not easy to do, they're just like, oh my gosh, where do I start? Well, that's what a table of contents does. Now, number 2, if you write your papers, then write an executive summary. So meaning any large paper or any size paper, you write an executive summary for it. That executive summary very often can get that leader started, can get that person started and be the kickoff point. Then they can go into the table of contents. Or in many cases, after you've written the paper, you write that executive summary. That executive summary is so good that you can put it in front of them and then use your paper to answer any questions that they might have. This is very important. Now, an executive summary is not a rehash of every point. It is a very concise and brief, plain language description of what's in the document, not actually the results of what's in the document. Now, you could, in your executive summary in the very first paragraph, define the recommended direction. So let's go back to that marketing makeover. You've created this binder. The binder contains controls of the company. The binder contains marketing pieces that are competitive, their competitors' marketing pieces. It includes marketing pieces for other companies that sell to the same customers. It might include a customer avatar. The executive summary at the front would be a briefing of the AIDA. The attention is driven by the outcome they desire. So that first paragraph is going to talk about that outcome they desire, restating that outcome. And then you're going to build desire by telling them what's in the program in the form of benefits. And finally, you're going to connect them to the table of contents or to your indexing or whatever's necessary for them to get right into what they want. Executives tend to know exactly what they want. So the executive summary gets them in there, gets them started, gets them driving forward. Number 3, because the office is getting busy here, always establish some kind of background before a conclusion. you got to deliver your insights in a certain order. Now, I could be talking about your report of findings here. I could be talking about how you set up a sales letter. I could be talking how you write up a technical document for an executive level audience. Being able to write for executives is a powerful skill, and we actually have a complete program on how to do that. We can coach you on it and give you specific training, even from writing status reports to other types of things. That's primarily what I do for Fortune 100 companies. But ultimately, if you don't establish things in the right order, the executive will get information that they don't have any context to take action on. So I described an executive summary that in the first paragraph, we'll talk about the recommended action. Well, you can't mention the recommended action to an executive that wasn't there during the findings or the evaluation or the consultation. So if you're going to have an executive who's reading this report who wasn't intimately involved in the engagement, then you're going to have to include a little bit more context or provide where the recommendation is in the report itself, and then where the recommendation in the report is has to deliver either a cross-reference to the context or a re-summary of the context. So, for example, if you're doing a marketing makeover, and this is one of the things that I do with my clients, is a marketing makeover. I take all their marketing, I research their marketplace, get copies of marketing of all their competitors, get copies of marketing to anybody who serves the same customer. I write up a customer avatar. I write up a marketing calendar, for example. I add in some plug-in campaigns like holiday marketing programs, birthday marketing programs. I look at their top products and profitability so that we can organize something that gets a customer in the door and then immediately gets them engaged with a profitable product. All this comes in a giant 3-ring binder. So my executive summary, the action really is just start following the marketing calendar, but my executive summary describes the kind of the process that we went through. We collected all the research and materials from as well as did a competitive analysis, and as a result of that, we think you should start here. Now, we don't say we think, we tell them you will start here. And that starting point usually is some kind of index tool. I don't send them to the table of contents. I send them to some kind of index tool, which could be a flow chart. It could be a marketing calendar. It could be a process for getting their lists cleaned up. It really just depends on what we found in the marketing makeover. But ultimately, that one step, if they take that action right now, they're going to get some kind of tangible result. So they're going to take an executive summary. They haven't even read the whole report. They're going to go take a specific action based on the executive summary's first paragraph, and then suddenly they've got some kind of result that now invests them in reading the rest of the damn report. So when you're writing to executives, this is important because the executive's going to look at that executive summary, they're going to reference through the rest of your materials, and then they're going to tell people what to do. Those other people might read your report in detail. Now, of course, we've got 16 tips. I'll give you a copy of all 16 tips when you click the link below and you ask for tips on writing to executives. But my point here is if you don't establish the background, the executive won't have the context to take action, and they will feel like they haven't moved forward. We hired a consultant. They did all this research. They disrupted our office for a week, and they give us this giant-ass binder, and we're no better off than where we started. Do you see how that happens? Well, again, that executive summary, that single page, is going to set up some kind of index. Could be the table of contents. You could say the marketing calendar is on page 12. This is where you start to organize the campaigns that you're already doing. There's a customer avatar on page 8. The customer avatar is what you're going to use to understand the focus of your marketing. And then there's profitability charts on page 25. These are the core products that you're going to market initially. And this is the kind of thing that becomes a working document to that executive. So that 3-ring binder, when I do a marketing makeover, becomes really all the work that a vice president of marketing or vice president of sales would do, but I'm doing it for a company that doesn't usually have a full-time person in that position. And so the business owner also has other hats on. They're doing human resources, they're doing customer service, they're doing operational management, they're doing procurement, and they don't have time to get into a lot of details. So using these tips, we now produce more functional documents for our executives. We now produce documents that have more applicability, meaning they read it and the context is right and they say, yes, this is for me and I'm in the right place, I'm in the right materials. They're going to now start using these materials more often, so they're going to come back to it as a reference source, which elevates your value to the organization, because we all know every business has a closet full of marketing materials that they printed out and never distributed, full of campaigns that didn't work as expected, and full of slogans and stuff that just changes every year. Writing for executives as a copywriter, as a business development consultant, even as a technical writer who's just getting started with words that sell, you can make big money in big chunks with these assignments. Now, I gave you one example of the assignment we do. There's other types of assignments. If it's a publicly traded company, there's annual reports. For larger companies, there's white papers, there's assessments, instructional manuals. The concepts are the same. Your executive is a busy person. Your executive has to make decisions. Your executive wants facts, and they want them right now. You know, to communicate facts, very often it takes more than just a statement. So you can build in what's necessary to communicate the facts, but also make it easy for the executive to find, and they can move forward. Now, there's more in these tips about structure, about audience, about the rewriting of parts of the report for other uses. And I'll address that real quick here. Very often when you write for an executive, it's not going to be the right document for an engineer. If you write for an executive, it won't be the right document for a program manager. Very often, you will write about the same core topic or the same core facts or findings in various audiences. So what I would do in my marketing makeover binder is I'd actually have a section that pulls out and you give it to the staff. So one client I was working with, I did a binder and there's a point about answering the phones. They got probably about 100 phone calls a day, but nearly no leads. And I didn't understand why they weren't getting any leads because the phone was seriously ringing off the hook. So we did a call log at each phone, and we limited the number of phones that rang to a receptionist and a backup person. So instead of calls coming in anywhere in the company, they only came in 2 places, and every call got logged. And we were able to pull the phone numbers off of the phone system in order to know who called so we could audit the log itself. That whole concept has an element of supervisory, which is we're monitoring the calls because it turns out a lot of those inbound calls were actually friends and family. But we also want to make sure that no leads fall through the crack. So that's a supervisory role. But the person answering the phone needs a separate set of instructions on what is expected. Here's the log sheet. Here's what you fill out. Here's what you capture. Here's what you don't capture. Here's what questions you ask. And so we ended up with probably a 4-page instruction sheet that gave examples and showed how the log worked, a single-page log which would list all the day's calls. And then we had a leads sheet where if someone called and it sounded like they could be a customer or a prospective customer, then they would go through 2 or 3 questions on a leads sheet. And at the end of the day, the lead sheets would be distributed to the salespeople who would follow up on those calls. It transformed the way the business operated. It boosted the sales of the organization. But again, it was written for the executive first. Then subsections of that were taken out and rewritten, and in many cases, simply just executive summaries. And then those summaries were added to the templates or forms and given to staff in a training session. From a marketing perspective, from a copywriter or a freelance services perspective, you now take a simple document and have transformed it into training opportunities, into auxiliary secondary materials, form design, even workflow and process optimization. And it makes for a better solution for your customer and better results for you, but it comes all from writing to executives. That executive must understand it so they can say yes to what it is that you have to offer. So even if you're not writing for executives deliverable products that they're paying you to write, like special reports, annual reports, speeches or presentations, you can use the tips that I can share with you through this Writing for Executives when you contact us at www.adbriefings.co.uk. I'll get you these 16 tips. You can use them for your report of findings, for enhancing the value of your proposals. You can even use it to create special reports that you use in your lead generation or irresistible offers. In fact, this binder that I'm describing, I take sections of that binder and I've turned them into all these notebooks that I've got in my office, and I reuse them. So like a birthday card campaign. Well, guess what? That's a packaged thing. First, years ago, I wrote it up several times independently for clients for different reasons. Some clients had multiple customers, so it was business to business. They might have multiple decision makers. So we're not sending a birthday card. You might be sending a series of birthday cards. So you don't want to send like all the people in the same office the same birthday card the same month. You need to have unique cards for each person. So we had some procurement related cards, we had some sales related cards, and then we had generic cards that we kind of randomized. But ultimately, it was the salesperson going down to like Hallmark and buying a box of cards. But eventually the program evolved and became a module. So what you learn in writing to executives also sets you up for creating information products or creating other types of resources that you can use over and over again. The anniversary campaign, it's pocket now. It's basically, I can put that into a binder. When I do these marketing makeovers for clients, we really end up with a plan that's solid, 12 months worth of marketing, something they can just simply execute. But many of the components are 25 years, 20 years of business development put into a binder, put a table of contents on it, put an executive summary on it, tailor it for the customer's unique needs, include their industry-related stuff, include their customer avatar, and bam, they are delighted. They're fantastically excited about the outcome, but it's based in these tips for writing to executives. If you'd like to get these 16 tips for writing to executives so that you can be more effective in both your own copy, but also the deliverables that you provide to your clients, visit us at www.adbriefings.co.uk. You can simply open a help ticket and ask for tips for writing to executives. I'm Justin Hitt from Ad Briefings Copywriting Tips, where we help you write words that sell. Not just words that sell for yourself, but that help your clients sell, that help create results that are persuasive and influential. Thanks for listening. Again, I'm Justin Hitt with Ad Briefings Copywriting Tips.